What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Blazers Uprise post-game show. The Blazers tonight lay an egg, and it's due to a lot of the same stuff that we've talked about all season, but you also got some off-the-court storylines that we're going to touch on today. This stream's probably going to be a little bit shorter than normal, maybe an hour and a half or so. We'll get you guys out of here at around 8 p.m. You know, that's when class will be dismissed, but my goodness, the Blazers today, Eric, come out with Rondae Hollis-Jefferson starting, which is notable for a couple reasons, right? We're going to talk about the Derrick Jones thing in a bit, okay? We'll touch on that for sure. But they start, you know, CJ McCollum, Norman Powell, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, Robert Covington, and Jusuf Nurkic. And they come out of the gate and set the tone for this game in a horrible way. In a negative way, right? What's the excuses been all season, Eric? Wait till we get Nurkic back. Our defense will improve.
Yep.
Nurkic comes back. Oh, well, when you have a small backcourt with neither guy being a good defender, you know, you can't play good defense. Well, we started CJ and Norman Powell tonight, not CJ and Dame. Now I've seen a couple people, oh, well, we don't have Dame today. That doesn't affect our defense. Norman Powell's a better defender than Dame, right? We come out with CJ and Norm, so no small backcourt excuse, right? We come out with Robert Covington and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson at the forwards. No excuse there. Last year, oh, we need wing defenders. Well, those are two extremely good wing defenders. And then you have Jusuf Nurkic back. And the Blazers come out and give up 44 points in the first quarter to the Charlotte Hornets, who were missing Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball, their best two offensive players. As I've said all season long, it's simply not a personnel issue on either side of the ball. I mean, if personnel was that much of an issue, then Charlotte should have lost tonight. They were missing Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball. We should have won tonight on the defensive end with the defenders we were starting. Personnel is simply not the issue with this team. We've been saying it for years, basically. And now people are running out of excuses. There's a lot of Olshey slander online for personnel reasons, even though the Blazers had far better personnel tonight than the Charlotte Hornets. I don't even think that's debatable. And it's just an absolute mess today on Blazers Twitter, and the Blazers played a messy, bad game. What are your thoughts on that, and what are your thoughts on the game? What are your feelings right now, Eric?
I mean, at some point, you see Charlotte score 44 points in the first quarter, right? We saw, I mean, San Antonio tailed off. I think they only scored 31, but they were on pace for just about as many halfway through the first quarter. At some point, we got to stop with this team's just hitting shots. This team is just feeling it tonight. Like everything they throw up is going in for some reason. The reason is Terry Stotts. He does not know how to coach a defense. We come out of the game with no game plan on the defensive end. We come out with this incredible defensive personnel, and we just run the same crap that we normally run. There's no attention to what players have the ball or what to do in certain situations for Charlotte specifically. It's just, oh, let me just play these defenders, and it'll magically get better. Our defense will be good. And yes, having Nurkic back led to our defense being better than it was without Nurkic. Of course, if you have a better defender in those positions, it's going to be better than it isn't. But this defense, even if you extrapolate the 19th defensive rating, I still think that's underachieving based on the personnel we had, particularly in a game like this. And I just don't understand how he can just continue to go into games like tonight and not have any sort of game plan. Okay, you want to start Rondae Hollis-Jefferson? Then trap with him or use his aggression. He's a great pressure guy when he's aggressive on defense. But if you would just have him sag off and just do your normal defensive crap, he's useless in those things. You're not playing to any of these strengths. And we see a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., we'll talk about, like you said, but that guy doesn't even play tonight, coach's decision. And this guy, Stotts doesn't think he has any impact on the defense. And it's yeah, because you're not adjusting your defense to fit what these guys do best, and you're like basically just making them play a defense no one wants to play. No one likes playing this kind of defense. It gets torched regularly, and you continue to run it out there. There is no excuse for that as a head coach. Absolutely none. I don't want to hear anything about injuries, personnel, the GM. That is 100% on coaching. Coaching decides the game plan. Coaching decides what players do in certain situations. Coaching gets the players that are on his team prepared for these games, and it is absolutely not happening. There was a point where Stotts, you could count on him at least having his guys have the effort and never give up attitude, and that kind of attitude leads them to come back maybe in this game and make it look a lot closer than it was. But this is absolutely a problem. For the last 2 years now, Stotts has absolutely not prepared this team to play basketball games, and it is absolutely costing us wins this year against teams that we have no business losing to.
Yeah, and my whole thing is just, we've heard that time and time again. I've heard you, basically explain that, because that's what's happening game after game after game after game. I'm at the point where I'm just absolutely done explaining what necessarily went wrong, at least with just this game. I'm not gonna go. I'm not even gonna explain to you guys what went wrong on a detailed level in this post-game show. Like, I mean, I've done it all season long, and we come out with a starting lineup with 2 good defenders and 2 great defenders in it, and the defense, it doesn't have any impact. It's crazy how people scream that, oh, our defensive personnel isn't good enough, but then when we come out with 2 good defenders in Powell and Nurkic, 2 great defenders in Rondae Hollis-Jefferson and Robert Covington, we still give up 44 points to a team missing their 2 best personnel pieces offensively. Like, it's common sense at this point, and anybody who's raging at Olshey right now over this game, that just shows how biased they are against him. Because there is no way you can look at these 2 teams, the players who played tonight, and chalk it up to a difference in personnel. We didn't have worse personnel on the court than the Hornets tonight. Who is their best player talent-wise on the court tonight? Terry Rozier? Who is their next best player? PJ?
Probably Bridges.
Washington? Bridges? I mean, bro, like, none of those guys would have been starting tonight. Maybe Rozier, but I think, Rozier would have been the 3rd guard off the bench behind CJ and Norman Powell. None of those guys on that team, I don't think a single one of them would have started for us tonight, other than maybe Bridges in at the 3, right? That's the only guy. Granted, I think Derrick Jones Jr. should have started. We're going to touch on that later. Like I said, I kind of want to touch on that after we listen to Stotts' interview, which we will do, because I know you guys want that tonight. But, I mean, we have 4 positions in which none of their guys would have started. That's with Rocco at the 4. That's with Nurkic at the 5. That's with CJ and Norman Powell in the backcourt. So how is it a personnel issue? It's just absolutely crazy that people chalk it up to that. It's like this Terry Stotts, it's copy-paste game plans a lot of time, right? Yep. He switched up his defense a little bit against Boston. I'm like, it was nice to see, but I'm not going to put any stock in that for obvious reasons. We see this coming. Every time they have a game where they play a good style basketball, they regress from there. It's like a flash in the pan. It's an outlier. It's not any sign of progress. So that's why the people, I'm not going to name any names, but people say, oh, well, they just need more time to gel. They just need more time to figure things out. They got healthy and these guys got to get used to playing with each other again, yada, yada, yada. That's just excuses in order to be optimistic because, well, we're, 6 games into the 7. For those of you who know what we're talking about, in this team, I mean, they fought back at the end because Melo hit a bunch of insanely difficult shots. This team essentially got blown out by a hobbled Hornets team that was playing terrible basketball going into this game. Okay? This is not something that's going to be rectified. They're not going to improve their style of play. That's why it's tough. A game against Boston, if we win that game, it's hard to even get excited about it. Because you like the style of play, but it's not going to last. So this is going to result in us just running into the playoffs and maybe Dame, CJ, and Melo and Norman Powell can hit a ton of shots and we can win games 130 to 125. But unless that's the case and all those guys play insane, this is a first-round exit.
Yep. And what happened to the ball movement and all that other stuff that we heard from the coach himself saying we need to do? We saw a perfect example of how ball movement can lead to easy baskets on Charlotte's end tonight. But no, that doesn't translate to wins when it comes to our team. It never correlates assists to wins and stuff like that. So we don't need to do ball movement, I guess, anymore. Before I want to make another point about the defense, but let's get to these donations real quick. Kyle Wilson with the $5 donation says, quote, "One team hit their shots and the other didn't is an observation, not analysis. We know one team made more shots, Jordan Kent. Try telling us why."
I'm so tired of hearing that, man.
I don't know how many times if I had $1 for every time he said something about that this year, I would be very rich. And just when we're getting destroyed and he's like, "Oh, every bounce, it just seems to go their way, and every shot they throw up goes in." Like, well, there is a reason for that. Like, it's because our defense is awful.
It happens too frequently for anyone to chalk it up as luck or an outlier or anything like that, right? If 1 out of 10 games you go up against a team and you're contesting shots and playing solid defense and they're hitting a bunch of contested looks and still score 120, then yes, they're making shots. They're making tough shots, you know, and say you got open shots that game, but players were shooting cold and you missed some open shots. Sure, you were missing good shots and they were hitting tough shots, you know, like every once in a while. Okay, but notice how I still added more context to that. You know, if we're missing good shots, the good is the context there. Because there's a lot of times, a lot of games where we're missing a ton of really tough looks, okay? And Jordan Kent just sits there, "Oh, Blazers just missing shots." But we're not getting good shots. And the thing is, we can shoot contested shots. We shoot the highest percentage of contested three-point looks in the league. You know, this is something that's backed up factually. It's backed up statistically. This is not just me speaking, you know, just making stuff up here. This is backed up because we back our stuff up here. It's just when it happens like every other game where you're sitting there saying, well, the Blazers just missed some shots and the other team just made some shots. There's something much deeper than the Blazers seemingly, as Jordan Kent tries to paint it, getting unlucky and just missing shots and the other team just getting lucky and making shots, because that's basically how they try and paint it. You know, and it's just sad. It's ridiculous that commentators of a professional basketball team, I mean, I feel like he's fed those lines, but I don't know, man. I mean, like, I'm not even necessarily, it could be a problem that's rooted deeper and, you know, he has people over him telling him to say the stuff. I don't know. So it's not even necessarily like something personally towards him. It's just like everyone sees through it at this point. Everyone sees through it at this point. Even the people blaming the personnel, Eric, they're never, you know, it's deeper for them, as wrong as they are. It's deeper for them than, oh, they're just making shots, we're missing shots. For them, it's, oh, the personnel sucks, so that's why. Yeah. You know, at least they got a reason. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just, it's silly. This team is not getting better. This team is not showing progress. And now the rest of their schedule is, like, they had some easy games in the stretch. They got some tough games coming up. I don't know. I don't know what to say at this point, Eric.
Well, I mean, this was a team that had lost 4 in a row and was out there without their 3 leading scorers. So there's no excuse to come out with this effort, even without Dame. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing of that. You referenced the 7-game thing. Now I'm hearing that it's off because Dame missed 2 games, and so you can't count.
Which is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. More excuses. Yeah. But anyways, Bill Woj had a $10 dono. He said, "Here's the problem. I would say call it quits, but we are 3 games out of 5th, 6 out of 4th, a chance to play Denver, then Utah with a great roster and an MVP candidate. I don't know what to think." Yeah, I mean, this team isn't going to just like fold and tank the rest of the season, short of like another big injury to probably just Dame would be the only way we'd probably see that. And even with that, I don't think this team is bad enough to lose as many games as would be required to completely tank out of the playoffs. I mean, we could, of course, lose the play-in games and stuff, but that's a different story and doesn't get us very high in the lottery odds and stuff like that, it would still mean we keep our pick. But yeah, I think this deep into a season, it's really hard to just tank and go from a playoff spot to not having one.
You're not gonna tank. Dame wouldn't accept that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that shouldn't be the mindset for the organization. But the mindset from the organization should be that this stuff is the way this team is playing and the way this team has played this season is unacceptable. The style of basketball they've played is unacceptable. They've underachieved. Sure, they beat bad teams when they had CJ and Nurkic out, but Damian Lillard went insane, and a lot of times we still had the better roster on the floor. Now at this point, you got people that don't want to be accountable for some of their takes and just want to make excuses and paint the picture, you know, in a way that they don't have to admit they were wrong. And it's, you know, now it's, oh, we're missing Dame. That doesn't explain giving up 44 points in the first quarter, okay? We were missing Dame. That doesn't explain how, you know, CJ, Melo, Norman Powell, Yusuf Nurkic, Robert Covington, Anthony Simons, like, we gotta still have a borderline top 10 offensive team score 101 points against the Hornets, who don't play good defense. We score 107 against the Spurs, who also don't, you know, play good defense. Like, the offense has been a problem the last 2 games, but it hasn't been because of personnel. It hasn't been because we don't have Dame, because we've still had above average, at least, offensive talent on the floor, and we've been playing like a below average offense the last 2 games. But those same people will say, oh, well, small backcourt. Bro, taking Dame out helps that. It hurts the team a bit, but it helps that, okay? Now, if we were competitive against good teams without Dame, you know, it's not the same thing. But San Antonio was playing terrible. They were 4-11. We beat them by 1. They had multiple opportunities last possession to beat us, okay? And then we just basically got smacked by Charlotte. Carmelo Anthony went vintage Melo the fourth quarter and just hit a ton of insane shots, and we still lost by 8 and still only scored 101 points. It is far deeper than we're missing Dame or any of the excuses people try and throw out. It's like, I just wonder, Eric, at what point are people going to say, wow, I've made, you know, 20 different excuses this season for the team playing terrible basketball. Maybe the reason that other people have been saying the team's playing basketball all season long, maybe that's actually the reason instead of the 20 excuses I've come up with. You know, because there's a large section of this fan base that's how they think. It's just an excuse after excuse after excuse. They got to gel. They need time to figure things out, you know, and without Dame, you know, they stand no chance. But with Dame, it's a small backcourt, and without Nurkic, you know, the defense can't be good. And with Nurkic, you know, it's something else. It's so it's just, it wears me out. It gets me worked out. It's just silly. It's just silly. The problems are obvious. Some people need to open their eyes.
I just don't like the hypocritical nature of a lot of people who made excuses about injuries. Oh, we don't have our second best player. We don't have our third best player, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have these guys. And then those guys come back, and then all of a sudden, oh, our team sucks. It's personnel, right? Mm-hmm. Well, why weren't you saying that before they got hurt then? Why weren't you saying that earlier in the season then? Instead, they were saying, oh, they needed time to gel. They didn't have a lot of practice time because of COVID, right, Tori? So those are all the excuses. You weren't hearing, Olshey sucks, look at this team, look at this roster, they're terrible. You didn't hear that a single time when they were struggling at the beginning of the season. It was all lack of practice time, lack of continuity from the new guys on the roster, combined with that lack of practice time, and then the injuries. Those were the excuses. Now you're all the way into the season. These guys have played together. Then you get people like that say after we trade for Powell, oh, they need more time to gel now and get Powell introduced. And now, oh, they're starting Rondae Hollis Jefferson. That's a new wrinkle. We need like 10 games to see how that goes before we can judge if that's a good decision or not, right? But it's like, and then it's like the personnel all of a sudden is garbage. CJ sucks, even though it was a miracle we won any games without him. And then like the trade was horrible, even though Powell is not. I don't think Powell is the problem. He's been playing pretty good, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And it's just excuse after excuse after excuse, and they've constantly changed the narrative to whatever excuse lines up with Olshey being the person that is in the wrong and making all these terrible things for this franchise instead of the coaching. And honestly, if Olshey watches this game and is honest with himself about, I brought in Derek Jones Jr. partly to fix this problem on defense and specifically for Terry to change his schemes to fit around a player like him. And then Terry goes out and doesn't even play this guy and benches him for a guy you have on a 10-day contract and plays Rondé Hollis-Jefferson more minutes than a guy like Nas or someone, a young guy that you could develop. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm Olshey, I am livid tonight. I am just furious that Olshey went out and made these moves, and you still have people, like, condemning him as the problem.
Bro, well, here's the thing with those people. Those people were not condemning him before the season. They were saying, now exactly. We have to hold Stotts, now I'm going to be focusing more on Stotts because Olshey did his job this offseason and went out and got a great roster. And now they're attacking the roster because the roster isn't working because the head coach isn't making it work. It's silly. It's ridiculous.
And then, real quick, so Shaggy Squid had a $2 donation, Australian. $2 says, on a positive note, Kings about to beat the Mavs, and that went final just now. So the Kings beat the Mavs, so we didn't lose any games to the Mavs tonight, so we're still the same.
Eric, but why am I not happy about that? I don't care at this point. It's just like...
The frustrating part is all we have to do is beat a depleted Hornets team and we gain a full game on the Mavs and are in much better position to hold on to that 6th seed. And like someone said earlier, possibly move up into the 5th seed if we play better. But yeah, it's ridiculous that the team looks this bad this late in the season that we're not even happy about holding on to our seeding at this point.
Well, let me explain that. I'm just at the point where it's like there's no point if we're going to play this way. There's no point to being 6th or 7th or 8th or whatever. If we're playing like this, we're losing in the first round regardless. Like there's no... It's just... There's no hope to make the second round if we're playing this style basketball and we can't play a lick of defense. So it's like, it doesn't matter if we're 6th or 7th. We're going to lose with the rate we're going at. Like, we're running out of time. This is game, 56? We got 16 games left, believe it or not. 16 games left. I mean, I don't know, man. It's like I want the team to do well. Like, I care, obviously. I'm a diehard fan. But it's like I have no hope that the team is going to improve. Like, I want them to, but I have no hope. I don't think it's going to happen. And how many times have I said this year after a good game? Yeah, they play a good style basketball. Hopefully they can, turn this into multiple games. And then the games after that, they just don't build on it and regress back to the same base. Like their baseline is playing drop scheme, no defense, and not moving the ball, taking a ton of tough shots. That's their baseline, and they always move back to that. So at this point, instead of trying to be optimistic and hopeful and, maybe, that Celtics game. The Celtics game, I could have sat there and said, maybe they can turn this into, a step in the right direction. Yeah, I might have even said that, trying to be optimistic because I don't want, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, it's not going to happen. And I'm pretty sure I said that too. Like, I'm not expecting it to happen. There's no reason to expect it to happen. Because there's been so many times in the past 2-3 years where they've shown a different style of play one game. Talk about the Houston games last year, Eric, where they came out with a trapping defense and it worked great and we had a ton of success playing Houston and shutting down James Harden, right? And it's like we would have like the Mavericks the next game with Luka. And it's like, well, we'll see if we can build off of that. And then it's just terrible. And
just go right back to...
we go right back, or the traps are a lot worse and a lot more poorly designed. And you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't have hope for this team building. Like, part of that is I don't buy into all the fake excuses that, like, if you have to change your excuse or try and excuse your excuse with another excuse, that shows that your excuse wasn't real to me. Mm-hmm. Because it was literally, we're missing CJ. CJ comes back. Oh, well, a small backcourt, though. It's just like, build it on top and on top and on top. It's just like, at what point are people gonna be real with it? I don't know. I don't know, man.
The worst part to me is you hear Stotts, you hear the players on this team say exactly what needs to change and exactly what needs to get better. And then, like, a game after they do some of those things, the Boston game that you mentioned. They go right back, almost lose a game to San Antonio. They probably should have lost, and you can't. In my mind, they had more talent in that game as well on the floor. And then they come out and lay an egg tonight. It's like, when are you gonna stop talking? And how many times have we said that this year? The talk does not match their actions and their preparedness and all that other stuff, and it just drives me crazy. And then so Gabe from Valley Pod's in here. What's up, Gabe? So he's like, at least you didn't lose to the Spurs. The Spurs blew out the Suns the next night, right? After we beat them by 1. But the Suns are sitting in a race for the first and second seed. Like, they have games. Every team has games, yes, where they play bad. But like, Portland is consistently playing bad time after time. Sometimes they get bailed out because they have incredible shot makers and they can come back in games. Like, if they would have won this game, this wouldn't have been a good win for them. They still played like crap in this game. So, like, yeah, you can excuse that. Or like, the Mavs lose tonight, you can say, well, the Mavs lost to the Kings or whatever. But it's like, okay, but we're not the Mavs. We're not the Suns. Like, we're just worried about ourselves, and we're not seeing the things we need to see on a consistent basis, whereas some of those teams do have those consistently efforts, and they show the things they need to win and succeed when it matters in the playoffs. So those teams I'm not as worried about as our team, who is consistently saying they need to do things better and don't do it and don't show up in these games. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking at the last 9 games right now. Okay, 2 of them were against G League teams, basically. Detroit missing Jeremy Grant, OKC missing SGA and a bunch of guys, right? So you take those 2 games out. Out of the last 7 games, there's been 1 in which we've played solid basketball. Not even necessarily good, but 1 out of the last 7 games we've played solid basketball, and that was a game we lost, 1 point loss to Boston, okay? Those other games, we had an 18-point loss to Milwaukee, we had a 17-point loss to LA, we had a 19-point loss to Utah. We had a 9-point loss to Miami where we were down 19 with 5 minutes left, and then the garbage, you know, the end of the bench came in and brought us back 10 points, so we only lost by 9. But that was effectively a 19-point blowout to Miami. Then we had the solid game against Boston, okay? Lost by 1, but style play was better in that game than any of the other 7 that I'm talking about. Then we beat San Antonio, who we beat simply because we had more talent on the floor.
And I think we were down 16 in the second half.
And we were down 16 in the second half. Anthony
like
Simons plays insane. Carmelo Anthony, I think, I'm blanking on that last game. But you had some good individual performances, but the style play was not there, and that was a team we were better than. And then we get blown out by a Charlotte team that we had much more talent on the floor than tonight. So, I mean, that's like with, you know, bringing in Norman Powell, who's better than Gary Trent Jr., that's with Nurkic back, that's with CJ back. Dame played the majority of those games, so that's why I think it's absolutely ridiculous to say, oh, well, you know, these last 2 games, you know, Dame's been hurt. But like, it transcends personnel. I don't know how people can see that our issues transcend whoever we have on the floor. Like, we've seen so many different combinations of rosters and lineups, healthy, not healthy. You know, we threw Rondae Hollis-Jefferson in the lineup today, who's a really good defender. Defense still sucks. I mean, I don't understand why people can't see that it transcends personnel. Like, it's so baffling to me. Sorry, I'm ranting a lot on that tonight. It's just, I don't get it.
I totally get it. Like, last year, maybe, you know, we didn't have a capable wing at times. And especially in the bubble, you know, we're playing Melo with the 3 and starting 2 centers, basically. So I understand, like, people are saying, like, our roster isn't balanced and stuff like that. But then you have a whole offseason where you balance the roster out and you have decent defenders now and things like that, and it still doesn't get any better. So, like, I'm fine with people if they are real and say, like, look, Stotts has a much better team this year. It's not translating to a better defense. Like, something is wrong. But the people who just are like, oh well, this team is unbalanced now all of a sudden, and like like the roster was constructed so poorly. Like I saw 10 million people posting tonight. It just drives me crazy. So I don't mind you going off about it because it's ridiculous to see that stuff on Twitter. And I just, these are the same people who clowned us for thinking the coach was the problem 2 years ago. Coming off the Western Conference Finals, how could he be a bad coach? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And like everything we've told you guys is coming to fruition this season. We told you not to get excited about when we won 6 games in a row against crappy teams earlier in the year, despite missing our second and third players, that would not matter when it came time to the end of the season and into the playoffs, because we do not do anything well enough to compete or contend at an elite level. And this roster is being held back by our coach. And I just wish more people would just at least acknowledge that the coaching is an issue, on even if they have questions about the personnel too.
Well, Eric, I'm looking at things over the last, geez, how far back does this go? Over the last 2 months, essentially. Yeah, to February. Yeah, over the last 2 months. Starting February 16th, since then, we've beaten 2 teams that are currently above 500, right? Maybe 3. Dallas once, and the other one was Miami when they were missing Goran Dragic and Jimmy Butler. So that's a below 500 team without those guys. So essentially, we have
2 months. Yeah.
2 months, 1 win against an above 500 team. That's not good.
No, it's not. Let me get to some more donos real quick. Anime Jake, $2 dono. He says, does Powell seem like the only guy who wants to win? I love Powell's his mindset. I really think it's good for this team, and I wish we played him in a way that festered that to more people instead of playing this conservative defense. We've talked about this before. The conservative defense, I think, is the problem, and why we see efforts like this and why we see teams get randomly lucky shooting every time they play us, is because we don't have an aggressive mindset. So I like that he is aggressive on his own and seems to care a lot. I'm not saying like anyone else doesn't want to win or whatever. So I don't think it's quite that bad. But I really want to keep Powell. I think he is an answer to a lot of our problems versus like a reason why we're struggling right now. And I do see him getting mad more so than a lot of other players at times when things aren't going well.
Yeah, it's probably a shock to him to go from being coached by Nick Nurse to being coached by Terry Stotts.
Right.
Like, let's just be honest, man. I mean, the dude, we might have to fire Terry Stotts to get that dude to come back at this point. I mean, yeah.
If we keep Stotts, I think there's like a 5% chance he comes back. It's probably not like great even if we fire Stotts. We're probably closer to like 40% maybe, so still not 50%, but like without letting go of Stotts, I don't think there's any chance that guy wants to be here.
Yeah
Unless we like overpay him severely.
We're probably gonna have to, and at this point, like, there's no reason not to. If the ownership's okay with it, we're gonna be in the tax anyway. Like, screw it, give him 2 years, $30 million a year at this point. I don't know, like, you don't want to lose that guy for nothing. And I don't know, like, the dude, I don't think the dude is gonna. There's obviously issues with this organization, man. There's obvious, like, and it goes deeper than issues in the past. Like, there's seems to be an issue with like the attitude of this team, which is something we couldn't really necessarily say before. Like, it's getting worse. I mean, this team, like, the body language seems weird. It seems off. The communication seems off. It seems like a lot of time they're playing with very little emotion outside of a couple guys. I mean, honestly, there's something off.
It feels like the year before Dame Olshey Stotts came here, when there was a mutiny, and the difference is we have pretty much all nice guys who aren't gonna say anything this year, and that year we had like dickheads like Raymond Felton who would cause a problem in the locker room and stuff like that, and be a problem, and get a coach fired or whatever. But yeah, that kind of stuff is like, I almost wish we had a guy like that, whether that's Powell or someone else that would just like say this is unacceptable, this team is not responding or something. Obviously the new guy can't really come in and say too much. I think he's already said too much probably for this organization's liking. They probably had to talk to him about some of those comments he made about Stotts compared to Nurse. But yeah, this is the problem with a nice roster. And let me just say for a record, I totally commend the organization. Like, I'm glad they have players that you want to root for. Great guys. Like, there's not a single player on this team that I worry about like doing something and embarrassing the city of Portland or anything like that. So like, I'm very thankful for that. I'm not saying I want that to change, because I definitely would rather have to root for a team like this than the team in 2011. But like, or going back to the Jailblazers era. But at the same time, like, I just don't feel like any of these players are going to speak up and say what the real problem is. And it's absolutely obvious with their body language, like you said, that something is wrong. I thought, was it Quick that mentioned the funk thing? To Stotts. I thought that was like a good word for it, but Stotts obviously didn't seem to think they were in a funk or that anything was wrong, which is ridiculous in my opinion. Not that he should say that, but like, he also made it seem like they were playing good or something. Like, I'm not in a funk, like things are going great type of answer. And that kind of stuff, like, they are in a funk, and something is just off this season. And they thought it was because of the injuries last year. Like, everyone gave them the excuse for that. And then they had the injuries this year, and then everyone said, wait till these guys come back, and things still didn't improve. And I'm hoping that at least some of the main players, like a Dame and a CJ, are starting to realize what the actual problem is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's everything we've said, man. I mean, I try and make every post-game show as entertaining as possible and as, unique and fresh as possible. It's just like we're running, like, it's hard to do that at this point with these issues being the same thing we've talked about for 2 years. Like, I genuinely, when a game like this happens, it's like, oh man, how am I going to make this unique for anybody who's watching or listening? I honestly think that. And I try and phrase things differently and just, have fun with it and try and be unique and not say the same thing the same way. But I mean, The issues are all the same that we've talked about. So it gets tougher and tougher as the streams go by to I don't know, to make each stream fresh, so to say. And it sucks, because at that point it's just like, I don't even remember. There's streams where I don't even remember anything about them. I just know, oh yeah, it's the same stuff we've been talking about. So obviously I'm doing a pretty good job considering we still have 268 people in here right now. I mean, obviously we're doing a pretty good job, Eric, if we got, this many people watching. It's just like, oh, it's tough. It's the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's the same issues because they're not getting fixed and they're getting worse, and it's rough.
It's almost like they're playing with a defeated attitude, and then watching it, you see them give up 44 points, and then you feel the same way watching them. Like, it just feels like a defeat, even if they would have come back and won this game. It feels like they didn't deserve to win or come back because of how bad they played in the first quarter. And so yeah, it's like and like you said, their body language feels like they're defeated when they give up a three or whatever and someone hits a good shot. It's just like you can see the wind being taken out of their sails, and I don't know, it seems like they don't feel like they're good enough. And I don't know, something has to happen to jumpstart them, or this season is going to be memorable for the wrong reasons, and for one that they definitely would look back and think that it got away from them, in my opinion.
Yep. Are you able to get the donut? We missed a couple donuts.
So Jimmy Cleveland, $5 dono. He says, Melo gets hot and cut it to 12. Then he takes Nurk out. I don't like this coaching staff. Yeah, so he went small finally towards the end. This was good team maybe to do small ball against, or you know, they have an athletic forwards, you know, maybe throw out Giles like you haven't done all year. But anyways, yeah, it's I mean, that comeback was nothing other than Melo got hot, hit a bunch of ridiculous shots like he did in the Philadelphia game, but we were just down by more than we were going to come back from. And then when he started missing, we had no chance to cut back. So like that's all it was. Melo can hit tough shots. We've seen that his whole career. He can make those sometimes and get hot, and then he can go ice cold like he did after that stretch. That's nothing against Melo. That's just we need someone to hit incredibly tough shots for this offense to work, and you saw CJ not be able to do that tonight, so everyone blames him. But like our offense was complete trash even without even if we had CJ and Melo making those shots that they took. It's still not great offense. It's really bad, and the ball movement and the schemes and the plays need to improve, or it's going to look like this most of the time against. I mean, this is an average defense. Imagine if we were playing an elite defense and had this game plan tonight. So, yeah, it's just it's sad that they can talk about how things need to change, even offensively with the ball movement, and then you don't see it after that.
Yep. Didn't Anime Jake leave a donation before that? My donations have disappeared.
We got to that one.
Okay,
I
cool.
mentioned it. But then, what's up, Anime Jake?
Yeah, what's the dono after that? I can't see him.
I have to go really slow, or it'll.
Yeah, it'll like that's what happened to me. It will like refresh and like make him disappear, and you can't scroll all the way up.
And Anime Jake says he had another $2 donation later that said Stotts is living the "this is fine" meme, where the dog's in the house with it burning down.
Yes, I mean
he's saying "this is fine." That's basically
his whole
Stotts.
attitude. And we'll watch his interview if somebody can DM me the link to his interview, because I posted in chat asking for it, and nobody has sent it yet. So they don't post losses on YouTube, but so I don't know where to go necessarily.
Jimmy Cleveland had a $5 dono, a second one. He said, "I just wish I could talk to Dame or Olshey or somebody about the coaching staff." Like I said, though, if I'm Olshey and you saw your coach, I mean, I'm guessing that was not Olshey's decision to bench Derek Jones and play him 0 minutes after that was your big free agent acquisition in the offseason, or to give him such little minutes, especially without Dame, and you're already down a starter. Like, it makes no sense to me. But then, yeah, so like, if Stotts was not on the hot seat, I think the decision to not play Derek Jones Jr. at all tonight, that if I'm Olshey, would be the final nail in the coffin, in my opinion. So hopefully Olshey takes that as a slight against him, and now they're not on the same page and are battling against each other for who gets to stay, maybe, or maybe both of them would go. But I honestly wouldn't be upset if both got fired, but I just want to see this team, because I know if Olshey gets fired, the first thing they'll do is trade CJ, and then we'll never get a chance to see this team with a better coach. So I just want one time to see one season, give it one more season with Olshey, bring in a coach that has some unique schemes, both offensively and defensively, or bring in some good assistants that can help with that if he's only one side of the ball or the other. I just want to watch that 1 year, and then if it doesn't work out, fine. You could say you at least gave it a chance with another coach to see if it would work, and it didn't. I don't think they've been the problem necessarily, and I just want to see what they could do under a new coach. But I have a feeling if we fire both of them that we won't get that chance. So that's the reason why I want Olshey to stay, because I don't feel like he's done that bad of a job to warrant getting fired over what's happened.
Yeah, he's been better the past 2 years, in my opinion, too. I really liked his offseason, this past offseason. So, yeah, he's not the problem right now. Mr. Shaggy Squid Dono, he said, it was a $2 Australian dollar dono from Shaggy Squid. He said, "I bet Stott still uses Windows 7 straight up." And, yeah, I mean, his offense is stuck in 2005. His defense is stuck in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there was so much isolation back in the early 2000s that, like, our levels of isolation wouldn't be too, too unique. The thing is, teams have started moving the ball better once they've gotten better shooting, in my opinion. It's you have all this space for cutters and for guys to drive the lane, especially if they're catching kick-out passes and the defense is running at them. And, you have a lot more space for a lot of different things now since there's more floor spacing on the court. Now it's like, it used to be generally you just want 3 solid 3-point shooters on the floor. And normally that was point guard, shooting guard, small forward. There was a lot of power forwards that didn't really shoot threes back in the early 2000s. And now it's like you generally want at least 4 good shooters on the floor. And a lot of teams will have 5 good shooters on the floor. I mean, just look at Nurkic. Nurkic back in early 2000s isn't shooting threes, but he hit a 3 today. He's actually been shooting the 3-ball decently this year. So, like, a lot of times we've got 5 solid 3-point shooters on the floor. And it's like if we have one guy that can't shoot threes on the floor, like a Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, it, like, sticks out. And it's like, oh, man, you got a guy out there who's not going to help you offensively because he can't space the floor. You know what I mean? So teams, with all this extra spacing, utilize it and do a bunch of different stuff. And we don't. We just isolate against it. And then if we'll don't get an isolation pull-up jumper, so we'll kick it to the next guy, and then he'll shoot a contested 3. That's our offense. It's stuck in 2005, except we just shoot a lot more threes than teams in 2005 did. Defensively, drop scheme doesn't work like it used to because players are getting more skilled. They're getting better at shooting off the dribble. They're extending their range. Drop scheme does not work anywhere near as good as it did even like 3 years ago. So everybody said, oh, well, they had the 8th ranked defense, 3-4 years ago when we primarily ran drop scheme. I mean, that defense would not be 8th this year. I can guarantee you that. That team, running drop scheme all the time would be a bottom 5 defense this year because I think teams have gotten that much better at exploiting that sort of scheme. Maybe they'd be a little bit better since they were more consistently bought in and gave better effort, but that's crazy that that's an issue right now, on top of everything else.
Mm-hmm. One more dono. If we missed any other than the one I'm about to read off, I'm so sorry. Please,
I don't think we did.
Either tag Blazers Uprise or myself in the comments, and I will read it off for you. Mm-hmm. But Candyman had a $5 dono. It says, almost as if Stotts wants to get fired. RHJ over Nasir or DJ. I can't make sense. Can't make it make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, if he gets fired, he's guaranteed his paycheck. He knows he's likely gone after this season anyway. So maybe he just doesn't want to have a job anymore and get paid to go away. But I don't know. I have a hard time believing, for as good of a guy everyone says Stotts is, that he's going to just like sabotage this season just for that. But someone, I hope someone sends you that interview link because someone says he made a comment about it.
About what specifically?
About why he started Rondae Hollis-Jefferson.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for a link. I've seen multiple people say, watch the Stotts interview,
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, DM me a link, and nobody's DM'd me a link, so yeah. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Well, yeah, I'll just say it then, and we'll just skip over that part when we get to it. But he said he started him over Derrick Jones for energy reasons. So
what?
I don't know. Derrick Jones Jr. is one of the most energetic, high-flying, athletic effort guys in the league when you use him properly.
Bruh, there's no way he actually said that. I'm not okay. I don't even want to talk about that, bro, because I'm not going to believe it until I hear it. Okay. And then there will be another clip of us on Reddit and blowing up on Twitter. Like,
people are saying he did.
There's no way. There's no way. There's no way he threw Derrick Jones Jr. under the bus like that.
Zach says we missed his $0 donation saying like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks, Zach.
The message was the donation there. Yeah, I mean, I'd be down to watch it, but I don't know.
And this is this is why. Okay, so we all know. I mean, Evan Turner was a bad signing. Like, there's no way around that. It was a bad fit, especially knowing that Stotts was going to be the coach his entire tenure with Evan Turner. But this guy had better playmaking numbers, Evan Turner, than Aaron Gordon did this year in Orlando. And then he comes here, and those all just go right out the drain. He was a better defender, and like this guy just gets relegated to basically useless, right? And even if he was used the way he was in Boston, he still wouldn't have been worth his contract. So I'm not trying to justify that. That was a bad signing by Olshey. So yes, I can criticize as much as I can, say good things about Olshey. He does have some bad things he's done in the past. I tend to separate them, for the record, pre-Paul Allen's death and post-Paul Allen's death. I think post-Paul Allen's death, he has been well above average, if not good, as a GM. So you've got Evan Turner, and this is why Tori and I reacted the way we did when we signed Derek Jones, and this is why we did not want to trade for Aaron Gordon. These type of players, you cannot just say, this guy averages this amount of assists, this guy does this guy is a ball handler, and he'll open up the short roll, and he'll create all these transition baskets for us. We don't do any of that crap. That's stupid. Like, none of those guys would play well here. Aaron Gordon would be worthless like Derek Jones, like Evan Turner, like all these guys that play that way. It's just so dumb. And we don't utilize these guys to the strengths, and our defense would not improve with those guys. Our offense would be probably worse because we're making them shoot shots from like the corner three, which they're not good at. And then you see all these people, the same people who blame Olshey for all our problems are the same people saying, like, we didn't get these same guys, and who are excited about Derek Jones. And then you hear Olshey say, because we questioned it. We absolutely killed Olshey that night for signing Derek Jones. But straight out of his mouth, I knew I needed to upgrade the personnel, and I did that, and now our schemes need to also be changed and fit what I brought in. And so that, to me, meant that Olshey knew what the problems were, that they couldn't be fixed just by bringing in guys to fit Stott's system anymore, and that the system needed to be tweaked or changed. And Stott's acted like he was going to change it. He did a few things at the beginning of the season that got you thinking, oh, maybe after some time this season, maybe it'll develop into something that's really strong or whatever. You see the third game of the season, I think it was, when Derek Jones and Rocco shut down Anthony Davis and LeBron in the fourth quarter, and we beat LA in LA. And you see games like that, and then you're like, wow, this could really be something, like, great move. And then everyone's like, oh, you idiots, you thought Derek Jones Jr. was a bad signing, like, you guys are idiots. And so this is why, like, a guy like Stotts just completely ruins players like that. He ruins them. He doesn't, you hear all the time, oh, look, what players have done better than Stotts does with guys that when they're on the Blazers? What players do better once they leave the Blazers? And that's just silly, because it's a matter of how he does when they're on the team. The good players, I don't think he's using Nas right. I don't think he's using Melo right. I don't think he's using CJ right. Like, all these players could be better, I think, in a better system. It's just frustrating, and I just wish we could see it with another coach, like I said earlier. And I don't understand how it got to this point where we allowed Stotts to just go right back to doing all these things that we knew, Olshey knew, when we signed these guys, it wouldn't work if you went back to these same things. We needed to do things differently. And he went and did it anyway. It makes no sense to me. This guy is just running this team into the ground. And unfortunately, we're set up in a financial position to maybe have to have to keep him through the end of the season, so it's not going to change now. But it's just frustrating to me that people still defend this guy after all the things we've known to the season and blame the person who said it needed to be changed, but not the person who has the opportunity to change that and didn't.
I agree with that. Stott's interview is here if you are ready.
All right, let's go.
Thank you to everybody who messaged me the link. You sound way more excited than I am right now. Alrighty, Terry, what you got for us this time? A loading screen, okay. Oh, an ad.
You can run like there's no tomorrow.
I'm just gonna let the ad play.
But tomorrow always
Good old
comes.
BioFreeze. Didn't expect an ad on that one, but alright.
All right, questions for Coach Stotts? We're going to start out with Aaron Fentress with the Oregonians.
Oh boy.
Coach, clearly they couldn't miss in their first quarter, but did you feel like you guys also allowed them to get a lot of easy looks?
Yeah, the first quarter was a little bit of everything. I thought the first 12, they had 13 early first time out, and I think they're all in transition. So they got off to a good start in transition. Obviously, they shot the three really well, but we didn't. We talked about getting off to good starts defensively in the first quarter, and obviously we didn't do that. But their transitions kind of set the tone for the quarter, and then their three-point shootings set the tone the rest of the way.
Were you guys deficient in preventing the transition? Did you feel like you guys didn't have the energy not energy, but the termination to stop them?
We could have done a better job. There's no question. We didn't stop the ball one time. A couple times guys got behind us. I don't know why. If we weren't ready for the pace of the game, but they pushed the pace. That's what they do, and took advantage of it early.
Anything you want to say about that? Or do you want me to keep playing it?
Well, okay, well, I mean, he just said, like, oh, I don't know if they were surprised at how fast they were or whatever. I don't know how he phrased it. I forget. But basically saying that, like, it caught him off guard that they're an up-tempo team, really? Really? You didn't have your team prepared knowing that they run in transition, they pass the ball well, they like to get easy buckets, they like to push the tempo. Like, this just goes to my point that this team is not prepared to play. If they were, they would have known before the game even started. All day they would have been talking about how you have to get back on defense. You cannot allow transition baskets. You cannot do this. And if players are not responding to that preparedness and you telling them what to do, then get their butts out of the game and put in someone that does. We have enough players on this roster to go through players and take them out if they're not performing. So there's no excuse to me for not knowing if your team was just, oh, I didn't know if they just didn't know that they like to go out in fast breaks. Like, really? That's your job to let them know and to reinforce that that's not acceptable, that this team, I do not want to talk about after this game, this team beating us in transition. There is no excuse for that. It's effort. Get your butts back on defense. Like, this guy is not preparing this team.
Yeah.
Next question's coming from Mike Richmond with Logged On Network. Mike, I think you're muted.
Muted, my bad. Okay, sorry.
Mike, you haven't been on this for a while.
I know, sorry. Slow starts happen to all of us. How do you said you talked about the defense. How do you account for this late in the year just having that kind of sluggish first quarter? Like, if it's something you guys harp on, where does that start?
Great question, Mike. Welcome back to the post-game press conferences, dude. I've wanted somebody to ask that a while. You know, you guys talk about fixing this and you talk about fixing this and it still isn't fixed. So how do you explain talking about fixing it so much and not fixing it? Like, that's a great question.
Did you pick up that joke too?
Oh, now I think I missed it.
He said when he was muted, he said slow starts happen to all of us.
Oh, I just realized what he meant by that. That was a good one. Okay.
That was like a sly dig, you know? That was an awesome joke.
Okay. Yeah, I wish I realized that joke in the moment. That's clever. All right. Yeah. Well, good job, Mike. That's funny.
How do you said you talked about the defense. How do you account for this late in the year just having that kind of sluggish first quarter? Like if it's something you guys harp on, where does that start?
Starts with a mindset at the beginning. It's to me, it was the pace of the game, the way they pushed it. We knew that this was their style of play, and they jumped out of the gun. Now the 3-point shooting, that was a little bit out of the norm for them. They do have some good shooters, obviously, but they shot it really well. But the transition, there's really no excuse for coming out sluggish in transition defense.
Jason Quick, The Athletic.
What do you think about that, Eric?
I mean, the problem is he's right. Like, there's no excuse for it. But Richmond also has a great question. Like, why were you saying this back earlier in the season? You said this all last year too. Like, at some point you have to realize that what you're doing is not working, and you can't just say, "Oh, we knew that it was going to happen, but I just don't know why." Like, at some point it's like, well, then do something differently about it. Like, maybe try approaching it a different way with these people. It, like Gordon says, it's just his way of giving a non-answer without actually saying or taking any responsibility for what he's doing. So I just like, it's just another excuse. Like, oh, I told them. I don't know. They just didn't get back because it's not my fault. They aren't running back on defense or whatever. But it's like, I don't know. It's just, I'm sick of this guy's answers. At some point, he's got to get mad or break something or start crying or get emotional or something. Like, just like have something there that shows that you're like I don't know, concerned about it or like angry about it or something. It's like I don't know. It's just like, well, what are we gonna do? They just ran out in transition and hit threes. They're not really a good 3-point shooting team, but they hit threes tonight, so nothing we can do about it. You're the freaking coach. There's lots of things you can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, there is no excuse for it. There's nothing he can even say there because he's just full of it. You know what I mean? And he's been full of it, making saying, yeah, we need to come out with more intensity, more effort, and then they don't. It's just like, what can you say, man? I mean, yeah, it's just the team's been talk all year, and like at this point, it's just gonna be like, yeah, there's no excuse for that. We just gotta come out better, which is what they've said all year long. You know what I mean? They're not gonna change now.
Yeah, I mean, so his answer is like fine early in the season, or if like this is one of the few times where they had that problem, like we haven't given up 40 points in a quarter recently before or whatever. And it's like tonight, like we just got a little overwhelmed. We played like a slow team last game, and this like we weren't prepared for coming out and having them run, and then they started hitting threes on top of it and kind of avalanche. Like, that's fine if you just look at it in a one-game scenario or whatever. But like the fact that this team constantly has these issues in quarters and constantly gets outworked in the first and third quarter, especially when it should be the opposite. Those quarters you should be the most locked in you are. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. I get sick of hearing the answers after constantly hearing the same thing time and time again when this happens.
Yep. I'm just waiting for the Derrick Jones Jr. answer, honestly, at this point.
Yep.
Terry, what went into your decision not to play Derrick at all?
Here we go.
Well, it wasn't about not playing him at all. It was about getting Rondé, giving him in the starting lineup, providing some energy, honestly. We got him for 10 more days. I thought it was a good matchup for him. It wasn't about not playing Derrick at all. That's kind of the way it played out, but that wasn't necessarily the plan going into it. But that was the reason. It wasn't a decision to not play Derrick.
Bruh, you decide who plays and who doesn't play. Mm-hmm. What, are you going to tell me you don't have the power to sub players in and out of the game? Like, the plan wasn't to not play Eric. We just want Rondae Hollis-Jefferson for some energy. Bro, if energy is an issue, why did you bench one of our top 3 energy and hustle guys? Right? There's Rocco, there's Derrick Jones Jr., and maybe you want to throw Rondae Hollis-Jefferson in there, but I don't see how Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is any more energetic than a Derrick Jones Jr., and you still could have played all three of them if you wanted to. Instead, you've thrown Derrick Jones Jr. under the bus again. He plays his ass off despite the fact that he doesn't get anything ran for him. He has no part of the offense beyond just spotting up and making a freelance cut and catching a drop off. You don't run lob plays for him. Y'all don't even get out in transition, which is where he would thrive. Offensively, your offense, Terry, is a terrible fit for him. But he still buys in and busts his ass on the defensive end. A lot of times he gets banged up, he gets hurt, he takes shots, and he still fights through it for this team, and we need more of that. And you bench him. If energy is the problem, which you've already stated, how are you going to bench one of the guys that exemplifies that? The other hustle guy is Nas. Nas only plays 16 minutes, right? If energy is the problem, why is Anthony playing 30? I know he played good last game, but if we need energy, and we obviously needed more defense in this game, we gave up 44 in the first quarter, why is Anthony playing 30 minutes, right? And Melo played great, but we know you're never going to cut his minutes for anybody who brings more energy than him. You could have went small and taken Canner out, maybe put a little bit more energy out there. It's a BS answer, and I'm very annoyed right now that he basically said that he, I wasn't planning to bench Derrick Jones Jr., but he got benched because we needed more energy. That's pathetic. That's terrible, man.
Well, I mean, we've seen it before. Someone gets hurt, and you play a guy who isn't getting minutes in the starting lineup so that the rotations would stay the same or whatever. But the rotations have been crap, and Derrick Jones Jr. hadn't been getting consistent minutes. Even he started last game and only played 18 minutes. So that doesn't make any sense. And it's another consistency thing with me. So what prevents you from playing guys like Giles and Nas earlier in the season when they're energy guys? But back then, you had to play the vets, right? That's what he said in an interview. I'm going to give the vets their minutes or whatever. But now, all of a sudden, when it comes to Derrick Jones, it's a energy thing or whatever, where before he's on record saying that when it comes to certain players, it's not about energy or stuff. The vets have earned their minutes and they get those, right? So I don't like that one bit, saying that one guy, pointing one guy out in particular and giving him a coach's DNP coach's decision. When you have guys like Giles and Nas who could have provided energy even before Rondae Hollis-Jefferson was on this team, and he did not give those guys an opportunity in a lot of games.
Yeah. Benching Derrick Jones Jr. on accident, right? The plan wasn't for him to not play. Notice how he said, well, I wanted to play him, but you just ended up the game didn't go that way. It's just wait, if the plan wasn't for him to not play, and then we come out and give up 44 points in the first quarter, why would, if the plan was to maybe give him some minutes, why would he then not give minutes when we're doing terrible defensively and have very little energy? And he's one of our best energy guys. The logic behind how he's dealing with Derrick Jones Jr. lately makes absolutely zero sense. Absolutely none. I thought Derrick Jones Jr. was hurt and they were resting him for this game, honestly. Yeah. That's the only explanation that made any sort of sense. And then Jason Quick tweeted out,
he wasn't on the injury report, for the record.
It's just... It just doesn't make sense, man. You don't bench Derrick Jones Jr. for energy reasons. You run some damn lob plays for him. You run something other than drop scheme when he's in the game. Not only has he not utilized Derrick Jones Jr. correctly, but Derrick Jones Jr. has still played well for this team despite that. He's having a career year from 3. Before the trade deadline, he was playing terrific on both sides of the ball, I should add. He was bringing a bunch of energy that we needed, and now he inexplicably gets benched for energy purposes. It's just ridiculous. It's just another thing to throw onto the pile with Terry Stotts here, man. It's just another thing that he has completely mishandled, and I mean, expect more of it, I guess. Who knows who gets benched next?
And you know what I don't get, dude? like he even said it. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson might only be here 10 more days, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why would you risk ruining one guy who is actually here and you maybe want to keep next year over someone that's on a 10-day contract? I mean, even if we signed Rondae Hollis-Jefferson for the rest of the season, it makes no sense to placate him and or whatever. I understand, like, maybe if he would have given us, like, Derek Jones has been good, but I thought in this particular game I would give Rondae Hollis-Jefferson a look. He can't say this outright, but I think Block Boy is kind of right to where they thought they could just walk in and win this game against Charlotte. They had been struggling, right? So he was like, okay, let me play Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. I'll sit Derek Jones. And he might have even told Derek Jones that this is what's happening before the game. And then they get totally blitzed and it comes back to bite him. And then he has to come up with some other excuse, right? Because it can't possibly be because he made a wrong decision. He couldn't say, you know what, I messed up. I should have started Derek Jones Jr. in this game. I should not have done that. I should not have played him 0 minutes. He deserved to play in this game, and we lost probably because of that decision. He won't say that crap. Like instead, he's like, "Oh, energy," and I didn't mean to play him 0 minutes or whatever. Like it's just a joke, man. You don't treat players like that, especially ones that aren't doing anything to like wrong or to go against you or whatever. Like maybe privately he is or something. Maybe he did say something to him or kicked his dog or something. I don't know, but like I just don't understand risking losing Derek Jones the rest of the season just to see what you have in Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. I don't know. It's like, why don't you risk changing your schemes and seeing if that works instead of changing your lineup?
If he says something as simple as Derek Jones Jr. has been nicked up a little bit lately, we wanted to get him some rest, and we also wanted to see what Rondae Hollis-Jefferson would look like playing some legitimate minutes. Like, I'd have been like, okay, I kind of see that. Like, all right, fine. You know, but that explanation was terrible. And we got more. This is a 7.5 minute interview. We're 3 minutes in. So let's see what we have next.
Okay, but still, you know, it's Derek Jones Jr. He's not just some player. He was your guy's top free agent signing, and he's theoretically one of your best defenders. How does he not get in a game like this?
Well, I'm not going to disparage Derek. I just thought it was the best move for the team at this point.
Thank you, Jason.
Next questions coming from Jamie Hudson with NBC Sports Northwest.
So with that coach, you mentioned the energy
real quick. So I just looked it up. Going into this game, the Charlotte Hornets were actually 9th in the NBA in terms of 3-point shooting percentage. But Stotts earlier, I thought, said that it surprised him that they shot the three well.
Did he?
Yeah, in his answer about what happened at the beginning of the game.
Yeah. I don't know why you're surprised. We give up great 3-point shooting nights to bad teams, so why would it surprise you that we gave up a great 3-point shooting night to a good team? A good 3-point shooting team. I don't get it. Inaccurate. Be better. Terry.
Hollis-Jefferson. What else did you...
Let's hear AJ McCord.
So with that coach, you mentioned the energy from Hollis-Jefferson. What else did you like? And because obviously you wanted to see what you had in him.
Really, I thought he played well. He did what we wanted him to do. He was very active defensively, got some extra possessions, got to the free throw line, set some good screens. So I thought he played well. Obviously he was part of the group that got off to a poor start, but that was a group thing, not necessarily on him.
Dwight James, NBC Sports Northwest.
Terry, going into a game like this when they're missing obviously at least three quality players, they're probably their two best starters and their best guy off the bench. What is it about preparation or about NBA players or about, like I said, game preparation that you could have a first quarter like this where it just didn't look like you were prepared at all for what they brought?
The NBA is a funny thing. You look at San Antonio's rested 3 important guys last night at Phoenix and win by 26. This is a tough league, and things happen. Sometimes it's preparation, sometimes it's effort,
another
sometimes
team wins.
it's the
See,
quality
I
of the
said that
opponent.
earlier.
Another what? What'd you say?
Another team. That's what I hear with other excuses from other people. Like, well, Phoenix lost to San Antonio too, but we beat them, so that means our win was good. Or Dallas lost tonight to a bad team. Like, that excuses us losing to a bad team. I hate when
It's just
teams bring
ridiculous.
other teams.
Yep. I hate.
And it's just another excuse from Stotts.
Well, but it's in contradiction of, we're missing guys, so what do you expect? There's nothing we can do, which has been his attitude when CJ and Nurkic were out the entire time, and all his defenders say that too. But now it's like, well, the NBA is a funny thing, teams missing guys could have good games. It's like, that's a contradiction. It's just BS. It's just absolute BS. He is never going to ever take accountability for maybe having the team a little bit ill-prepared. He will never take accountability for his own coaching. He thinks he is he thinks he's Red Auerbach at this point. I mean, the dude will never say he made a mistake or did something wrong. Have we heard him say anything like that at all this year, where he's made a mistake or should have done something better or anything at all this season?
I'd actually challenge someone to bring that up in 9 years, where he's taken accountability for something.
Because after game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, it was like, Steph Curry went off against Houston when they trapped, so what am I supposed to do? That was his whole attitude then too, even though the whole nation saw that it was dumb, and then the next game he came out trapping because he realized he should have, but he still wouldn't, admit, we probably should have thrown some different looks at him and didn't, or anything like that. No, he's just full of hot air, he's full of... It's just BS. I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of listening to this guy talk.
Real quick, we kind of skimmed over it for obvious reason, but so Quick asked a follow-up question, and Stott said he didn't want to disparage DJ or whatever.
We've already done that.
I mean, what else are we going to say at this point? Like, we know Stotts is throwing DJ under the bus, so that's why we just kind of skipped over it. It's not that we missed it or anything. We've said all we want to say about the DJ thing. So
I mean, you guys know it's obvious. It's obvious that he's disparaging DJ. With the comment about the 29th ranked defense in DJ, and then, we didn't play DJ because we wanted more energy. Like, that's reading between the lines, but it's obvious, I guarantee you DJ is like, he's just trying to do his job, and he wasn't, it's not disparaging me. Nah, DJ's probably pissed right now, and he should be.
Yep.
Sometimes it can be a lot of things, but as far as we had the same preparation as we always do, but
that's the problem. That's the problem. The same preparation as you always do. Yeah, you prepare the same exact way for every different team in the league. That's the problem. Exactly the problem. Anyway,
Yep. Why did you prepare exactly the same way against a team that's completely different than the last team you played against? And no wonder they weren't prepared for the transition and the 3-point shooting.
Yeah. I wish somebody would just say that. Oh my goodness.
Always do. But it didn't work out in the first quarter. But I don't think it was a preparation thing as far as knowing their sets, knowing their style of play, knowing what type of team they were.
But you're surprised they shot the 3 ball well when they're a good 3-point shooting team.
What was it then?
Well, as I said, I thought their transition, their pace of game, the way they started set the tone, and then they shot the 3 really well. The next second, third, fourth quarter, we played them even, outplayed them basically. But no, that was a blitzkrieg. They came out, they were fired up, they played extremely well, and we didn't match it.
Didn't he say earlier that they were surprised, he was surprised about 3-point shooting? Didn't he also say something about they weren't prepared? I don't know. I feel like he contradicted himself somewhere. I can't remember the exact quote, but
see, here's the problem. He says that he told them about a good transition team, so be prepared for that. And then when asked why they weren't prepared then for the transition, why the transition defense was crap, it's like, well, I don't know. I mean, they just blitzed us. Well, if you ignore the first quarter, we played them. We might have won the game if it wasn't for the first quarter. Well, no crap, dude. You got your butts kicked in the first quarter, and you played fine the rest of the game. But this isn't a question of how many quarters are you winning for. Otherwise, we would have beaten the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals if that was all it mattered, was how we did most of the game against the team, right? Because we had, I think we led them in minutes led by a lot in that series. So yeah, it's so dumb. This guy just passes everything off as just happenstance, and just just everything goes against us. I have no idea why. Well, you're the reason why, dude.
Mm-hmm.
This drives me crazy.
Yep, we got 2 minutes left. Let's see if we can make it.
Yeah.
I might
Going back to Aaron
lose my
Ventris
mind
with the
before
Oregonian.
We've all talked about, and you've talked about how tough the schedule is the rest of the season. How much does it hurt to lose a game like this against a depleted team when you've got the Clippers coming up and Denver coming up, and then a road trip on the horizon?
Look, it was a disappointing loss. There's no question. We coming on the heels of San Antonio, it'd been nice to go back-to-back wins on the road, but Charlotte played well. I'm not going to take anything away from them. They played extremely well in the first quarter. A lot of, Rozier was hot, Bridges was hot, but I'm not going to take anything away from Charlotte. They played really well, but it is very disappointing. You win that first one on the road trip, and you think you have a good chance to go home 2-0.
And last question.
Disappointing. They just played well, though. They just made shots. Bridges was hot. I mean, yeah, typical. Anyway.
Hey, I have a suggestion.
What?
Rozier was 7 of 13 from 3, had 34 points, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, why not try to force the ball out of his hands, or trap him, or blitz him on some picks, or be aggressive, mix up your schemes and try to make someone else beat you other than him. Or if someone else starts going hot, PJ Washington got hot in this game, why not try to shut him down or do something differently instead of just running your same crappy defense all the time?
Why not try?
Yeah. And like Gordon says, Dame can't get shots. So that's his excuse he uses. Oh, Dame got blitzed in this game. Well, I couldn't get him shots or whatever. But then we don't do anything to take the ball out of Terry Rozier's hand when he's just lights out hitting threes. And then it's just well, he's not a good 3-point shooter, but he made 10 threes. What am I supposed to do? Bro, well, you can double team him or something. I don't know. Try something.
But Eric, he just doesn't try, man. He just doesn't want to try. He just wants to hope his defense would work. He just sits back there and is just along for the ride. In the fourth quarter, he's just well, Melo's getting hot. Hopefully he can save us every time down. It's just going to be Melo one-on-one, and, no coaching needed for that. I'm going to just hope he makes some shots. And then defensively, well, we've coached them on drop scheme, so hopefully they can execute it. Oh, well, guys are getting hot. Oh, well, they're just making shots. I mean, nothing we can do. Right, assistant coaches? At least we got front row tickets to an NBA game, and we get to enjoy this basketball. That's basically the attitude at this point with him. So, I mean, he's a glorified fan at times, is how I feel like. Shout out Robert Branscombe. Sorry, I probably butchered your last name. $5 dono. We also had another $10 dono that I want to. Was it related to the interview, or should I read it off? Should we read it off after?
It was not related to the interview, but I wrote it down, so I have it.
Yeah, we'll read it off after the interview. We got.
It was Jimmy Cleveland. We'll get to you, man.
Yeah, we got you.
Coming from Jason Quick with The Athletic.
Another Jason Quick one.
Coach, a couple weeks ago, you said you like the direction you guys are heading in. Do you still feel that way? And actually, yeah. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah. Obviously Dame didn't play, and Dame's a big part of our team. So when Dame's healthy, I think Nurk is rounding into form. So, yeah, I like where we are. We got a tough schedule. There's no question. There's going to be some ups and downs the rest of the way. But, we've been, since we've added Norman and Nurk to the team, I think last count, we were 16th in defense. I think that's going in the right direction. We get Dame back. I was encouraged by our offense against Boston to win a close game.
Yeah, what happened to that offense, Terry? Bruh? Like, you can only get at them. Is that what you want to run offensively? And you can just only get it like once a season? Or what? Yeah, I was encouraged too, but then I remembered you were coaching the team. So
he wasn't even right. We're 19th on defense, not 16th since in Nurk.
Yeah, and we had Powell and Nurk in this game in the first quarter when they gave up 44 points. So yeah, and I don't know, against every good team with those two in the lineup, we've been bottom 10 still. I mean, jeez. Yeah. Paint the pretty picture, man. I mean, the extra interview is going to be interesting. Well, let's just say that.
I don't know if they'll throw him out. They might just say they mutually parted ways at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm expecting at this point.
San Antonio. So there's some positives. Obviously, this first quarter of tonight's game kind of dampers it a little bit, but I think overall we're going in the right direction when we have everybody.
All right.
Oh, the injury excuse.
Right.
We're going the right direction when we have everybody. All right, man. Oh my goodness. Well, that's Terry for you guys.
But when it comes to Charlotte missing players, the NBA is a funky league, and look at the Suns playing the Spurs without 3 starters. Yep.
It's just so many Stotsisms in there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so let me
let's
get
thank
to the
donos.
2 Jimmy Cleveland donos. One was $10. Thank you, Jimmy. He says, what Junior said before going to Toronto makes more sense. I'm assuming he's saying, talking about the stuff.
Trent.
Yeah, Trent. And I mean, both Trent and Powell have reinforced how much different coaching is on one team compared to the other. Now, Powell's interesting because usually you don't get the opposite of what you have. Usually it's like Trent, and you can chalk it up sometimes to, Trent went to a new team, he's got to say that, or he's, of course, going to praise his new team and act like he's the most wanted he's ever been and stuff like that. But when Powell says it about his old team and says it's different on this team and not quite what he's used to or whatever, I think that's more telling in my mind. And it's rare that you see that. And I'm glad he pointed it out right away. And that's someone that, I mean, he has no ulterior motive to say what he said at the time. So I completely believe him that it is that much different and that we're a lot less prepared. Our coverage assignments on help defense and stuff are very weak compared to in Toronto, was a specific thing he mentioned. So yeah, I absolutely buy stock that Stotts is just being outcoached in some of these games, and it's a big reason why we don't see the consistent effort.
Yep. I agree on all accounts. And go ahead.
You can, if you want to say
yeah,
anything.
I'm reading. I was just going to read the second donor.
Okay, yeah.
Shout out Jimmy Cleveland, another $5 donor. He says, even the rookie head coach changed and started to double team Melo, so Stotts can't do that. Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, Borrego's in his second season.
He's not a rookie year. Yeah, he's not a rookie. I think it's his second year.
Isn't it second? I think it's his second season, but I mean, the point still stands. I mean, the dude's a young head coach, but that's the thing. A lot of the new head coaches aren't stuck in their ways like old ones, so they're willing to do a bunch of different stuff. Whereas a guy like a Terry Stotts is stuck in his ways and doesn't want to try anything other than what he's used to. Stotts could definitely throw out different things defensively. He chooses not to. It's ridiculous.
And Block Boy, what the man? I hate you, Block Boy. No, just kidding. He says, "I'm telling you, all Blazers are going to go to the Western Conference Finals just so he won't be fired and piss all y'all off."
I would be shocked.
I mean, I'd be happy we went to the Western Conference Finals. I would probably take that trade-off just to have another fun playoff run, and that would obviously mean we beat 2 good teams at least to get there. So I don't think there's a lot to be upset or mad about if that happens. But yeah, having to do these post-game shows next year with all these same problems, and then having all the people say that we made the Western Conference Finals because he's such a great coach, and not because like Dame and Melo and CJ just got insanely hot and won. So
there's no chance we're in the Western Conference Finals at this point with the way we're playing. There's just no chance. I mean, I don't see how. Who are they going to beat? The Lakers, the Clippers? I don't see them beating the Suns, the Jazz. Like, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But hopefully they don't have the personnel excuse. That's the last thing I want them to be able to fall back on. I mean, yeah, I'm just ready for the playoffs to be here to see where we finish and see what it looks like, man. Shout out Killer54 for the $2 dono. Says 2K is so trash they have Derrick Jones Jr.'s defense lower than CJ. Yeah, I don't mess with 2K, man. 2K's bad. I
think Dame's 3-point rating is really bad too, right?
Yeah, they like lowered it to an 82 or something.
Oh,
yeah.
In 2K's defense, though, CJ has probably been the better defender this year. Obviously not this game, but he actually
not the Derrick Jones Jr.
Oh, DJ's lower defense. I thought I misread that.
Yeah. No, they got Derrick Jones Jr.'s defense lower than CJ.
I thought he was talking about Dame and CJ, but my bad.
No,
yeah.
DJ.
Okay. Yeah, that's trash.
Yep. So let's quickly go around the NBA. There was a lot of games today, and then we'll wrap up this stream. You have one game live right now. Clippers are beating the Timberwolves 72-53. For the games that have gone final, Hawks beat Pacers 129-117. Trae Young, 34 points, 11 assists. Malcolm Brogdon had 29 points, 8 assists in the loss. The Knicks beat the Pelicans 122-112. Julius Randle had 33 points and 10 assists in the win. Julius Randle with hops had 34 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists in the loss. That, of course, is Zion Williamson, according to Enes Kanter. Other games, Heat beat the Nets 109-107. Bam Adebayo has 21 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists. Eric's phone is having a meltdown, and Landry Shamet had 30 points in the loss. Great game for Landry Shamet. I had to throw that in there. Blazers lose to the Hornets 109-101. Terry Rozier, 34 points, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, almost a triple-double. Great game from Terry tonight. Rockets beat the Magic 114-110. Christian Wood, 25 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. Dwayne Bacon, maybe I just made y'all hungry. He had 22 points in the loss for the Magic. The Raptors beat the Thunder 112-106. Chris Boucher, 31 points, 12 rebounds. Lou Dort had a terrific first quarter, tapered off, but he's been playing great basketball. He had 29 points, 4 rebounds. And then
say it, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we should have signed him to a two-way after the draft. After my first stream, I said it after the damn stream. Sign Lou Dort to a two-way, and we didn't. And we definitely should have. That's the one area that I think Olshey struggles in, is working around the fringes of the roster and finding those, like, deep sleeper type of gems. He's able to find a guy, maybe late first, early second, like a Gary Trent Jr., but when it comes to, like, undrafted players or random players from overseas, like, you look at, like, Bielitsa, Tice, those types of guys, he doesn't do well with that.
I will say this, right now, cut TJ Leaf and sign Mo Wagner if he doesn't get picked up off waivers to the two-way. Then you're talking about a guy you can maybe develop or could maybe get some minutes and actually contribute.
I would love that. I think Mo Wagner's underrated, man. I mean, I'd take him with the last roster spot, try and get him on a 2-year deal or something. The last game we had was the game that we've talked about a little bit. Kings beat the Mavericks 121-107, so the Mavs don't gain a game on the Blazers. De'Aaron Fox, 30 points, 12 assists for the Kings. Luka in the loss had 37 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. So the standings right now are pretty much the same. We are 9.5 back of the first place Jazz, right? We are 2 games ahead of the 7th place Mavericks. We are 2.5 games behind the 5th place Lakers. We are 4 games behind the 4th place Nuggets. 6 games behind the 3rd place Clippers. 8 games behind the 2nd place Suns. Right now, it just looks like, the Lakers are going to get healthy soon. It looks like it's a battle between 6th and 7th between Portland and Dallas. But also, Eric, we have a stretch where we play 3 out of 4 games against Memphis coming up. Memphis is only 2.5 games behind us. If they win 2 out of those 3, they would only be 1.5 behind us. If they win all 3 of those, they would be a half game ahead of us. We're not we could fall out of the playoff picture still with how hard our schedule is. Right now, we are only 4.5 games ahead of the 10th place Spurs. Imagine if we lost that game. We'd only be 3 games ahead of 10th place. I mean, there's a chance this team falls out of the playoffs. There's a chance the team falls. Honestly, I'd say it's more likely they fall to 7th than they stay at 6th at this point. But there's a chance they fall to 8th. There's a chance they fall to 9th. There's a chance they fall to 10th, which is just ridiculous with how talented this roster is. So, yeah, I mean, we'll get to see.
So just to clarify, so Wagner, since he was released after the April 9th deadline, would not be playoff eligible, but he is still eligible to be signed by any team.
Yes.
They just couldn't play him in the playoffs. And if we sign him to a 2-way instead of TJ Lee for Blevins, then we actually have a way to make him a restricted free agent this offseason, whereas if we don't do that, then we don't have that option. So we'd actually get a look at him for a few weeks and then possibly be able to sign him this offseason. Or like Tori said, you could always sign him to a 2-year deal knowing that it's not going to matter if he helps us in the playoffs or not.
Yep, exactly. Would much rather have him over Blevins or Leaf. For sure. I've always liked Mo Wagner's game. I still feel like he has some untapped potential and could be a solid big off the bench. But, I mean, I think this roster is pretty much what it's going to be. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson will be on a normal contract after the second 10-day, and, we'll move forward from there. So, but as I've said, it's not a personnel issue. It's not a roster issue. The issue is the coaching of this team. And once again, we saw that at full display today. So anything I'm just kind of disjointed. I'm kind of all of a sudden got scramble bread. Anything else you want to say on this post-game stream?
No, just I'm just really disappointed, and this should have been a game. We were talking about 2-0 road trip and setting ourselves up to maybe, if we just tread water against some of these good teams, that we could be talking about possibly moving up in the standings instead of holding off Dallas. But unfortunately, we just, I don't know. I'm just so disappointed that this is still something that's a problem with this team. The coaching, it just, I don't even know what to say at this point. It's just like I'm so defeated. But
I honestly don't share those sentiments because I'm like beyond disappointed where I'm right. So the 5 stages of grief is like denial. The 5 stages of grief are: number 1, denial and isolation, right? Denial, there's still a lot of people in stage number 1. Stage number 2 is anger. We see that play out on Twitter a lot. Stage number 3 is bargaining. Maybe Stotts can figure this out. Maybe, that was like me at the beginning of the season, right? Maybe he's going to figure it out this year. Stage 4 is depression. Would you say you're in that stage? You're in the depression stage?
Yeah, it's hard to get past that stage when you watch this team, but
Yeah, I've moved past stage 4. I'm in stage 5, which is acceptance, and I mean, we're never going to see anything better coaching-wise for the rest of the season. So it's going to be what it's going to be. We'll see how it plays out in the playoffs. If this team plays like this, they are going to be a quick exit, and then hopefully some good things will come out of that. That is the stage I'm in. So I'm in stage 5. Let me know in chat which stage you guys are in terms of grief right now.
See, I'm right there with you, except for I can't fully accept it ever. I just can't accept that this is going to be the way this era ends or goes down in the record books with Olshey and CJ being the problem and Coach Stotts getting the blame or whatever. I just don't get it. Yeah.
My acceptance is it is going to be what it's going to be, and if it keeps up like this, Stotts will be gone next year. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's just when the team was coming back, honestly, part of me was like, I don't even want them to come back. They've played terrible today. They don't deserve this win. But I've always wanted them to come back. This is one of the first times it's been I don't care if they win this game, because at this point, what's winning going to do for them? Keep them in 6th? What at the end of the season, is that going to make a difference? No. Being in 6th, being in 7th, if they play like how they played today, it's not going to make a difference in the end of the season whether or not they lose this game, whether or not they lose the next one. They've, as I've said all season, have to improve their style of play. I don't see it coming, so I'm in the acceptance stage. Like, I've accepted that this is going to be what it's going to be, and then hopefully there's changes afterwards. And it doesn't matter if they win this game or lose this game. If they lose a bunch of games, honestly, here's the thing. Let me just say this, Eric. If they don't improve their style of play at all, it would be better for them to lose more games. I'm not rooting for them to lose. I'm rooting for them to improve their style of play. But if they don't improve their style of play, they're a first-round exit anyway.
Yeah, I get it.
Probably in 4 games. So having a lottery pick and a loaded draft, honestly, would be solid. And then Stotts is, like, all but guaranteed to be gone. So, like, it's almost like, I want them to win. I want them to improve. But it's just, like, at this point, if they're not going to change their style of play, which I feel like isn't coming, it doesn't really matter what happens, and I'll just watch it and be along for the ride and cover it. And, if this team, somehow makes a bunch of shots in the playoffs and makes it competitive, then I'll be there cheering for them. But I don't know. At this point, I'm just kind of like, bleh, I don't know. Which makes it better, actually. I just wasn't, they lose this game, and I'm just like, another one.
See, my problem with, because I don't know if I definitely felt what you were feeling when they were coming back, and it's like, but it's more like, man, they're going to win this game, and then Stotts is going to be like, oh, that's yeah, what effort and grit and heart to come back and win against this great Charlotte team that's awesome in transition, and like, it would have been completely just excused everything bad that happened. So I guess you're right that like, it's probably better for them long term if they lose as many of these games as possible. It's just hard to accept that the team continues to come out and play like this night in and night out.
Yeah, and Blockboy says, Suns or Clippers overtake the Jazz because of the Donovan Mitchell injury. We get the Jazz in playoffs even though they blew us out in the regular season, and we beat them. Remember I said it, I don't think we're beating the Jazz. I think we're losing in 5 games if we play the Jazz right now. But even if we do, what, in the second round we play the Clippers? We're losing. Like, we're not making it past the Clippers, especially. The Clippers are probably a little bit more talented, and they present more matchup issues for us than the Jazz do. We got blown out by the Jazz twice, got blown out by the Clippers twice. So it's like, oh, cool, what? We beat the Jazz, and then we lose in 4 or 5 games to the Clippers, and then Stotts maybe keeps his job, and then we have all the same issues next year. It's just like, I don't know. I want us to do well in the playoffs, but this franchise just needs change, and it can't keep prolonging the change. And I don't want some anecdotal success to make them prolong change that, by them prolonging change, they're basically giving up their chance to ever truly contend. And I don't want a first-round series justifying, us winning a first-round series to help the front office justify not making the changes that need to be made in order for us to do more than make it to the second round, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, that's kind of why I feel the way I do.
Yep. Yeah. Blockboy, though, if they do win the playoff series and Melo comes back and you have to watch Stotts all next season too, then you're not going to be happy either. So don't wish that upon us.
He says we want Stotts gone too bad. We want Stotts gone because he's not the right coach for a contending team. We want Stotts gone bad because we want this team to contend really bad. And I don't want them to make the second round at the expense of contending in the future. I like, if they make the second round, I'll be rooting for them to make the second round, hoping that, okay, if they lose in the second round, they'll still fire Stotts. And they'll still make the changes that need to be changed, that need to be made. You know what I mean? Even if they make the second round. So I will root for them to win in the playoffs with the hope that they would still make the right change. But it's not wanting Stotts gone specifically. It's wanting a good coach for this team specifically because I want this team to contend. That's 1,000% where it's coming from. I'm just thinking long picture here because I feel like we don't have much of a chance this year with the way we play. So I'm like, when are we going to have a chance? It's probably going to have to be in future years because with the way we're playing right now, 16 games before the end of the season, it's not going to happen this year. So, I want to give ourselves the best chance in future years. So it's kind of more of a long-term mindset.
Yep. And for the record, so CJ the GOAT says, imagine next year we have a new coach and have the same issues. So then we'll
hire
address
the right coach.
Yeah, we'll
Just
address
hire the right coach.
If a coach comes in and plays drop scheme and has this basic crappy conservative defense and does nothing to fix it, even when it's horrifically bad, then they deserve to also be accountable and fired, and that's not the right coach.
I will be the first one to sit here saying, why did we fire Stotts just to bring in somebody who has all the same issues as Stotts?
Yep.
Like, it just doesn't make any sense. You fire Stotts and you fix the issues by getting somebody who is a better coach. You don't go out and get the same version of Stotts just with a different name. I mean, but even then, like, at least that coach might have the locker room's ear a little bit more and be able to get them to play hard consistently. You know what I mean? So I don't see how we could do worse at this point, unless we went and hired Jim Boylan and everybody hated him. You know what I mean? Like, that's like the only guy I can think of that'd be worse at this point. I mean, yeah, you just go out, hire the right coach. Hire a good coach. Doesn't even have to be perfect. Just somebody that runs better ball movement, has better offense, has better quick hitting sets, doesn't just run drop scheme, runs the right schemes, knows how to coach defense, and gets effort out of his players. I know that sounds like a lot, but it's really not.
Honestly, I'd be fine with a coach that doesn't succeed as long as he seemingly does everything possible before he goes down. And I don't feel like that's the case with Stotts. Some people, were questioning whether he knows he's going to get fired and he's just kind of coaching knowing that. But like, if this is your last stand, why not at least try something? And the answer is this guy is so insecure. He knows that if he changes it, it might actually work. And then people will question why you didn't change it before and why this has taken 9 years to change this stuff. And then he'll probably get fired for not doing that, not coaching that way. So he's kind of screwed either way. But if they bring in someone new and every game, like we had the 29th rated defense, but every game he's like trying to throw all these crazy defenses out and trying to do everything possible, I'm going to like at least say, hey, to his credit, at least he tried everything. Maybe this is a case of the personnel isn't the best, and we have this guy trying everything literally he can do. But I don't see Stotts doing anything to match the personnel to any of his systems or to tweak his systems to match the skill set of these individual players he has. And then he has a guy like Derek Jones Jr. who just completely throws under the bus and pretends like he's the problem, not the coaching. And I'll gladly keep talking if this means we go on a historic run and win a championship. But like, I just want a coach that isn't content with going down or our defense being terrible, that it will do everything possible to try and fix it. And if he can't, then just admit, hey, look, maybe that's on me. I couldn't get it done. I tried everything. I'm sorry, but like it just didn't work out for me. But at least I can hold my head high saying I went out trying everything I could. Whereas I don't think this guy Stotts could say that at all these last 2 seasons in particular. He's going out trying to act like he's like this magical coach, and it's the players that are the problem, and I don't like that at all.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, we're along for the ride, guys. I mean, here's the thing. This offseason is going to be fun. We'll run another mock offseason for, already have some spots that were definitely got filled. I mean, but we'll cover it like we used to. That'll be fun. We'll have the draft. The offseason will be a little bit shorter than normal. Will be even shorter than the, layoff period between like last season getting suspended and then the bubble, right? I mean, it's like a month shorter off season. Next season, hopefully have, a lot of fans in the stands, maybe full stands. I don't know. There's a lot to look forward to, like long term, where like after the season ends, I'm not going to be in as bad of a mood as I normally would be after the end of the season. You know, the offseason will be fun. Maybe, hopefully, there's some good changes for the organization. Then we'll just move forward. You know, that's my most optimistic mindset right now. But yeah.
Meanwhile, we still have picks against the spread. Tune in tomorrow, Monday.
Yep.
For Blazers Uprise Live, we got 9 games tomorrow.
Do we have 9? Oh boy, let's go.
And you can see this guy Eric Brandt in first place. Chat, you have to come in.
The last time Eric
strong.
bragged about being in first place, he fell off hard.
Chat has been very weak lately, and they're falling off hard. They're down bad. So anyone who doesn't normally tune in, chat needs some help with their picks. So come on in and help them pick before they fall all the way below Trevin and Reese at the bottom, because they're in a free fall.
Yep, they're down bad. Yeah, I mean, I'm only 5 games back, and yeah, things are bunching up. It's been fun. So yeah, tune in tomorrow. Link is in the description below. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at TorJonesYT for me, at HoopsJock for Eric, at Blazers Uprise YT for the channel. Thank you to everybody who tuned in today. This stream was actually far more poppin' than I thought it was going to be, but I know you guys like hearing us rant, and I know you guys can relate to a lot of the frustrations that we have with this team. So happy for that. Happy to give you some coverage of the team that's not just sugar-coated BS. But yeah, so we'll be live tomorrow, and then our next game is when? Tuesday? Question mark?
Yeah, we have a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday, both 7 p.m. starts.
Yeah, like 12 games in the next 21 days. So, yeah, very jam-packed schedule. So we'll have lots of streams for you guys. Appreciate you guys watching them, and I'm glad you enjoy them and enjoy the work we do. Because there's a lot of times going into streams where I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to make this entertaining where people want to watch it? But you guys consistently support us, so that makes me more confident that I'm streaming the right way, so to say, and that we're putting together a good product despite the monotony that this team has showed this season.
And we appreciate y'all.
Yeah, so that's going to wrap up the stream. Anything you want to leave off with, Eric?
No, thank you everyone for watching. It's been once again therapeutic to be able to vent to you guys. So I appreciate everyone just being here for each other, and I hope everyone feels better than they did a few hours ago.
Yep, I agree. Hope you have a good rest of your Sunday night. We will catch you tomorrow on Blazers Uprise Live if you're there. If not, probably catch you on the post-game stream on Tuesday. Until whenever we catch you next, have a good
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. You guys better tune in tomorrow. The real ones will tune in tomorrow, 3:30, 3:45 p.m. Pacific time. Make sure you subscribe to that second channel so you know. But whenever I catch you next, until then, hope you enjoy life. And as always, peace out.